blunders a lot. I forgot to lead us in thanks for the bread. I'm sure he was grateful. I knew he knew that we were grateful. Of course he did. I love this. Am I not sweet? Is it not sweet that I love this? This is us. It's not all there is about us, but this is us. This is flawlessness, what happens when we get together. But it's heartfelt. We need it as much as in us is. And he knows that. And look, if you never heard another lesson that said, you are sinners, if you never heard another lesson like that, you would know it as well as you now know it. You know who you are. If anybody's disappointed with you, you are more disappointed with you than anyone else. That's how it is with you and me. And if you've never heard another sermon that said, now we need to respond to God and we need to do things for God. It's not just about us being blessed. If you never heard another sermon that said, we need to be doing things for God, you would know that. But I know that. God wants us to do things for Him. But we already know that. And I've had more than one who, down the years, more than one who said, you don't ask a whole lot from people. I had a fellow not too long ago who complained quite a bit. He said, you never ask people to do anything. Well, I deny that for starters, but I said, don't I? I thought when people talked about the Lord Jesus in one another's presence, they are asking people to do something. They show Christ. You can't get around Christ for any length of time and not feel, I've got to do something. And my sense of things is that while every now and again we need to speak to one another, perhaps, I'm not sure, it would depend on who you're talking to, perhaps we need to rebuke one another. I get that. Even my daughter rebukes me now. She never uses rebuking speech, you understand. She always gives me these lovely hints and says things, and I'm sensitive to her. She's a sweet, lovely, Christ-like girl. She's not Jesus, and she knows that. But I see God in Linda, as I've seen in her mother and her two brothers. But I see it in you. Look. I'm a really sweet fellow. I get that, all right? But I'm not just sweet at times. I'm not just sweet. I like to believe that I love truth as much as everybody else. And what I'm telling you, I think it's true. You can't come to a place like this, sing the way you sing, pray, and have this spirit around you without you being lovers of Christ. And because you are lovers of Christ, you will increasingly, your vision will clear. It'll get to be better, and richer, and finer. Your behavior will become, over the years, gentler, sweeter, sterner, where that you judge that, and you'll become wiser. I know this happens to people. I see it over the years, God changing people. A fellow said to me, oh, more than once this happens, Mark, you. And I say, I believe in it. That's the thing. I Sometimes you get the impression I don't, but I do. You read in the New Testament, like in Thessalonians, you read in Galatians, you read in all the text where God says, it's not right to do wrong things, and on and on and on. I get that. But these people were barely out of paganism. They were 10 minutes out of paganism and heathenism. So they needed to be told, you now live in a different world. Let me tell you how you live in this world. You don't live in this new creation world the way you lived in the old creation world. So let me tell you, you need to be doing this. I get that. And so do you. People need to be reminded of these things. Every week? Every week? Every month? Every year? Every decade? Is there not something else that they need to be told? Thrilled? With? Joy-filled? About? Are there not other things that they need to be told? Yeah. I'm saying what you already know is true. But I think you need to be assured. If you and I hang around God as He's manifested Himself in Jesus Christ, we will be transformed. When Jesus said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. It's what happens. But how do you understand that phrase? If you love me, you will keep my commandments. Not as in the older versions, if you love me, keep my commandments. No, that would be true. But that's not what He says. He said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Yes, but what does that mean? If you love me, you will prove that you love me by keeping my commandments. Well, He might mean that. That would be true also. That's not what I think He means. I think He means, if you love me, you know what will happen? You know what will happen? You will do the things that please me. You will keep my commandments. That's what will happen. He says in John 15, if you abide in me, what will happen? You will. He doesn't say if you abide in me, you better produce fruit. He said if you abide in me, you will. That will happen. That's not just a response. He doesn't do it without us. That's not just a response, but it's a response that happens. This is how humans are built. Once more, there's Linda. I know of a fellow called Dean Holt. He died about 120 years ago. He was a clergyman over in Britain. He not only was a preacher, he bred roses. You know, this was a seriously green thunder. What is it, a green thumb? Yeah. This was a serious gardener guy about roses. And he not only raised roses, yeah, he raised roses, but they were great roses, prize-winning roses. And his wife was a very hospitable woman. She would have a crowd over every Sunday. And the preacher would sit there, and he would have a great name, and they were all chattering and having a great time. And he would let them have a lovely time. And then he would say to them, and now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to come into my garden. I want you to see my roses. So they'd all go out to see his prize-winning roses. And they would ooh and ah and all of that. This is all true. And they would have a great time. Well, one day, so the biographer says, the crowd came, and in the crowd was this beautiful girl. Beautiful in appearance, but gracious in her way, all of that. And the dean, that was not his first name, that was his office in the church. The dean couldn't take his eyes off her. He just kept looking at her. Then, when they all had their conversation, he says to her, "And now, young lady, I want you to come into my garden. I want my roses to see you." Okay? Love that. If my Linda had been there, that's exactly what it would have said. Now, Linda loves her father. What happens? You don't grunt. You don't sweat. When you're in love with someone, a boy or a girl, or husband and wife loving one another, if you love one another, parents and children, friends and the like, look, you do it. And you do it without thinking, I've got to do things. I've got to... That all vanishes. The doing of the lovely things to please the other always remains. But the complexion of it changes. Yeah. If I did something outrageously dishonorable, and the report of it kind of got in the air, and someone wanted to find out all the details, the last person in the world he ought to come to find out is my daughter. They couldn't beat it out of her. They couldn't bribe it out of her. There is no possibility that she would spread my shame and dishonor. Why is that? Well, the short answer, the correct answer is because she loves her father. That's true. But it needs unpacked, and this is what we need to be doing in our Bible studies of the Bible. How does it come that she loves her father this way? How does it come that her father loves her that way? How does that happen? We stay around one another. We experience one another. We talk to one another. We watch one another and see how it's dealt with. We experience the faithfulness of the other. We experience the forgiveness of the other. All of these things. This is how humans become lovely humans. They get to love one another, and they get to love one another by spending time with one another, thinking about one another, working with one another, where it's needed. Rebuking with the best heart in the world one another. And this is precisely how we grow in love with God. We hear about Him, we talk about Him, we experience Him, and as long as we are humans, that's how God will work with us. Until He is tired of us being humans and turns us into something else, He will communicate with us in a way that humans can have the truth that He wants to tell us. And if we come to admire Him, and I must speak to you, as someone who does some talking, when it's a speaking thing, I must do the best I can to speak to you about God. Not about you, not about me, but about God first. It's got to be God first. Always first, ceaselessly first, and as a consequence, a real consequence, then it's about you and me. For if God is the God we admire and think wondrous things of Him, what does it say about who we are? We are the ones He chose to create as His companions. And He wants us to rejoice in that. And I'm big these days on, I need to say something about romantic, where that's on my head. I am a romantic. But we had a discussion last night over at the Masons about what the word romantic means, and we did some reflecting on the historical development of the word. It's not just about the chemistry between a boy and a girl or a man and a woman. It's bigger than that. It has to do with one's attitude and disposition, one's vision, one's way of assessing things in the light of feelings, as well as rationality. I'm big on rationality. Though I don't do it very well, but I'm big on it. But I'm certainly big on freedom. And it is feelings that people act on. They don't act on just their convictions. Those are needed. They act on how they feel about the convictions, don't you see? So, and I forgot the point I was going to make by taking that little walk aside on the mind. You should have said that. Say, it's his fault. Now, have you any idea where I was going? No. Okay, let me start. This is all. There's no cure for me. You think, well, he does that funny, doesn't he? I don't do it at all. It happens. And trust me, this is me. Let me see. I'm saying that yes, now I remember. I was saying that we need to talk, especially in gatherings like this. It's about God, for pity's sake. You see the songs we were singing? It's all about God, and as a consequence, it's about us. But first, always first, and ceaselessly first, it's about a God worth bragging on. And if God is the God we even fractionally are correct about, He is more than enough for us. And consequently, because we have some sense of Him, who am I? Who am I? What am I supposed to be? And I am supposed, and you are, and you're supposed to help me, we're supposed to help one another, and we're supposed to help non-Christians to get the sense of God admiring. He's not just someone who's about sin. He's not about sin. He's about forgiveness. He's not about death. He's about life. He's not about gloom. He's about joy. And it's this that drives and moves us. I know this is right, and so do you, that when you see something lovely, something not just sweetie syrupy, but something lovely, and you have the heart to recognize it, it does something to you. It makes the world different. When you see somebody do something, just costly, glad to do it, you step back and have a look at it and you think, it's wonderful. And joy helps obliterate lots of the gloom and enables us then to handle things better than we can handle when we're down in our mind. So I'm big on talking about the joy of the Lord being our strength. I get that. And I personally need it. Here's a fella called Onesiphorus. If you care about Greek accents, it's Onesiphorus. We're going with Onesiphorus. Here's this fella. Paul is tough. Paul is one tough man. But that's one side of him. Paul was capable of being scared spitless. For in Acts 18, the Lord has to appear to him and say to him, oh, don't be afraid. I've got a lot of people. He's also capable of being very lonely. In 2 Timothy 4, he will say, twice in different words, he will say to Timothy, will you hurry and come to me? And then will you come before winter? And he will say, will you bring the cloak I got to Carpus's house? And just before that, he says, everybody in Asia deserted me. But the Lord stood by me. And then he says, but Demas abandoned me, having loved the present world, he went off to Thessalonica. And then the book of Acts chapter 28, this is important, it's sort of background to what I'm hoping I'll remember to say. In Acts chapter 28, he's now getting off the boat in Puteoli. He's going to be the prisoner to Rome, and then they're finally going to decapitate him. But there are some brothers who made a 50-plus mile walk or whatever to meet him at the boat. And the scripture says, and Paul saw them, his heart was lifted, and he thanked God. You hear Paul, the big tough guy, but he also needed people to be there because he suffered a lot, felt lonely a lot, had his tough times a lot. And this guy, Onesiphorus, we're told in 2 Timothy chapter 1, here's Paul saying, nobody stood by me in Asia. And then he says, and you need to hear the tone. I just want to thank God for Onesiphorus and his whole family. Here, not just the words, don't explain the words. Be there and hear this man and hear the tone. I just want to thank God for Onesiphorus, and I want God to bless his whole family. For he finishes the verse saying, you know how he oft refreshed me and what he did for me in Ephesus. But in the middle of it he says, when he came to Rome, those who say they know these things, and I suppose they do, they say in Paul's day that Rome had about 4 million people living in it. No smartphones. None of those digital jobbers you put in your car. The streets, only few of them had street names up. This guy gets to Rome, and he goes about doing what? Knocking on doors. Have you any idea where I would find Saul of Tarsus? The text says, he sought me diligently. Later versions, more modern versions say, he looked hard to find me and find me. Here's this fellow going, I don't know how long it took, Paul doesn't say, but he was through all of that. Looking for who? Looking for the criminal. I'm looking for Saul of Tarsus. I heard about that fella. That guy's in prison, and the text says, he was unashamed asking for Saul of Tarsus, and did him the pardon until he found me. Then God loves them. Here. If I ever lost my way, if I ever lost my way, would you come looking for me? Would you look hard for me? Look hard till you find me and help me face whatever it is that I had to face. I would want to believe that of you. Of course, I'm a stranger to well, not a stranger, but I'm a stranger to most of you. And we don't have history together. I get that. But I would love to believe, and I do, you understand, that if I got in trouble, that I'd find people here who would be glad to help me in whatever I would say. To look for one another and find one another is godlike. And Onesiphorus, here he comes. What, is he doing it for a month and a half? And he's doing all that. And finally, Paul sees him, and he's in prison, and the world changes. Don't you love that? Yeah. And you see what I'm talking about that? God walked behind that, whatever that is, slipped in, sat down beside you, he'd lean over, put his arm around your shoulder, and he'd whisper while I'm talking. See? He would whisper, you see that Onesiphorus? I really I really like him. And you would say, and then you'd say, and you would say, yes, I know. And he would say, how do you know? And you would say, because he reminds you of your own glorious Son who came looking for us and looked hard. For he said, even the Son of Man who came to seek and save the lost. And then in John 10, the thieves, the people who came before me were all thieves and robbers, but not me. I came that you might have life and have it. Not a little bit, not a little bit. A big bed. Not just a big bed. A big bed. And not just a big bed. I came that you might have life, brimful of life. And what kind of life is that? Well, it's a tough life at times, all of that kind of thing. But even in the middle of the toughness, there is within us throbbing life. Life in us. In Luke 15, three stories about God. And it's all about finding the woman with the broom. She would have broomed half of Palestine just to find that coin of hers. And that shepherd would have walked from here to the Australian bush to find his lost one. And the father who looked and did all of that. And the story is not, those stories are not just about God looking and finding, and this is very important here. Each story ends with the woman who calls her friends. And the Greek text has the female. She calls her female friends. And she says what? What does she say? Rejoice with me. And the point is what then? If you're my friend, I'm your friend, if we are lovers together, and I've lost something very important to me, and I find it, and I said to you, I find it, what would you do? Wouldn't you be thrilled for me? Then here it goes. Each story that's told, I'm nearly done. You're doing marvelously well. Marvelously well. God bless you. Each story as it's told, the woman finds the coin. Jesus said, even so is it in heaven. When something lost, someone lost, when something lost is found, not only has God gone and found it, when he finds it, what does he do? He gets his friends together and he fully expects that they will be happy for him. That's what started the stories in the first place. 15:1. Now the publicans and the sinners were gathered together for the hearing. And the scribes and the Pharisees murmured, saying, this man even eats with sinners. When the Pharisees had a Bible study in the synagogue, and Jesus had a Bible study out on the hill, guess where they all were? They were all out on the hill. The Pharisees' little synagogue study, where did they all go? They're out on the hill listening to them. How does it happen that they all hang around Jesus Christ? You know what bothered the Pharisees? The Pharisees were troubled that Jesus hung around people. You know what should have bothered them? If people hung around Jesus and didn't hang around them, they should say, I wonder why that is. It's not because Jesus never talked about sin and said, sin doesn't matter. It all mattered. That's not it. He came knowing who they were, knowing who we are, and he comes telling, and what does he tell about? What does he talk about? He talks about the Holy Father. He talks about God, and though he doesn't talk about himself much this way, he talks about himself as God who has come as one of us and joined us. One of our songs said that. And so I came looking, and now he wants the Pharisees to say, if you were, wants them to understand that if you were a friend of God, you would be happy to see me doing what I'm doing here. He comes not only to seek and find us, but do you know what really gives God a buzz? Finding us. And he goes, oh, isn't it wonderful? And he expects us to think it's wonderful, because he thinks it's wonderful. And if we are friends of God, that's precisely. And how does all of that happen? Well, I mean, and this isn't the place to unpack all of this and let you talk, and we'll have nice little balancing remarks. This is the way we, I think, structured. I get to do all the talking. But how does all that happen? The one word does it, but it's not enough. Love enters. And with love that is rich and balanced and gets wiser, as Paul will say in Philippians 1, that your love will grow wisdom and that. When that happens, joy, peace, assurance enters. Tough times still occur, and we don't deny that they're real, but they're put in their place. Like dying, for example. You and me, death can't hurt people like you and me. A little bit of death is no big deal for people like you and me. Why is that so? Why is that so? Because we came into contact with God, and even if we worry a little bit of right now, later, things will get better, it's bigger, and we begin to rejoice just in being alive. And then death becomes a servant. Yes? I don't want to be glib about that. Do I want to die? Truth, I don't care if I live or die right now. That's not the big deal. Why am I alive? And I'm not going to throw myself in front of a train right now. You understand? But while I'm alive, I want more and more of life. I don't want to be an idiot. I don't want to be the life that's sold to the party. I'm not built like that. But I want to rejoice. Yeah. And how does that all happen? You meet up with someones, and they help you to be like that. You see it in lovers who love one another, and who begin to think life, to be fullness of life, she, he, they. I want a minute. That would be fullness of life. Life is not just existing, if you will. It's relating, all of that. David Gates, is that a familiar name still? David Gates used to head up a group called Bread. This was years ago. I keep forgetting. I'm older. Yeah. But David, he did all of these Baby I Want You, all of those little sweetie romantic songs. But recently, forget that sentence. He married a girl called Jo Rita in 1958. Ethel and I married in 1956. She died at 2. But 2 years after she and I married, David Gates married Jo Rita. If he makes it, if they make it both together there, to next year, he will be 65 years married. Yes? See, I love that. And Charlton Heston, did I ever tell you I got a picture taken with Charlton Heston? Yeah, I did. He and I spoke at a big wing day in Dallas. Of course, that was the middle supporting speaker. He was the big wig. But anyway, just thought I'd tell you. No, what I mentioned him for, because he too was married for 60-some years to his wife. I love that. So do you. So do you. Well, if David Gates and his Jewelrita make it next year, they'll be 60, whatever I said there a minute ago. They'll be 65 years. Did I say 65? Whatever I said. In the 60s, the later 60s. He's going to be married all those years. And in show business, all of that, that's special. Well, recently, he wrote a song. You want to do yourself a favor? Go to YouTube. What's the next word? Google? Go to YouTube and just put up David Gates, Find Me. Yes? Skies are not as blue, he says. And I'm taking it, you see, he's singing a two and a bite for me. Skies are not as blue when you're not with me. Stars, they never seem to shine as bright. And an hour drags like days across the ages. And a year or two pass by with every night. Makes me know that if I should leave this world before you do, that you'll come looking for me, cross your heart and promise to find me. Look hard. See, I'm thinking of Onesiphorus here. But it's not just Onesiphorus, someone 2,000 years ago in a book. I'm not thinking of David Gates. I'm thinking of people sitting here, this moment. People who said yes to one another. Who said, I've come to stay. And did. He said, look hard. You know, don't stop. I'll be waiting till then. He should have said watching till then. But anyway, he said waiting till then. And then he goes on to say, I'm trying to tell the world how much I love you. But is this the kind of stuff you should hear from the pulpit? Yeah. Well, you don't hear it much from the pulpit. Yeah, and I think it's ridiculous. We should hear more of it. I'm talking about joy. I'm talking about life. I'm talking about all the lovely things, whether you know God's doing it or not, He's doing it. He said, I'm trying to tell the world how much I love you, but they don't understand how deep it goes. And I can't even find the words to tell you. So I'm the only one who really knows. And then he talks about getting separated and, you know, do what you did before, find me. And then he says this, toward the conclusion. And he's picturing her searching for him, you see? And he says, through 100 million faces, which is searching, oh, millions. In the middle of 100 million faces, you will see me shining through. For I'll glow when you come closer. I always do. Don't you love that? Don't poets do wondrous things? The Bible is filled with poetry, filled with it. It doesn't kind of suit our it doesn't always suit our taste. It's filled with poetry. They speak of God and He's loving. They throw up images. They do all of that, and we should do that. But more than beyond that, to see it in front of you, to see it in your own home, gentlemen, get into the habit of love's speech. To use speech that shapes a world. Speech is profoundly important. The sociologists who remind us of the sociological structure of reality are really opening our eyes to the nature of the structure and reality of life. But we cheapen life. And we steal from people the capacity to see and vision lovely things by taking speech that is gutter speech, cheap, speaking about full sexual engagement between a man and a woman and using just vile words to describe it and reduce it. They take the mystique from it. But beyond even that, we take these lovely big words, we don't use them anymore. But do we now call one another beloved? Do we do that? I suspect some of you do. And if you do, God bless you for it. But words like that have gone into disuse now need to be brought back out, polished up nicely, and offered. Remember the songs, "This is my beloved"? We do that. The word behold, when did you last hear the word behold? Except on the Ten Commandments movie, where Moses, the guy I met, that's it. When did you last hear that word used? When someone says, "Pass the salt," or "Where is it?" Someone says, "Look, the salt." No one says, "Behold the salt." The word behold is for something special. It's big and rich and lovely. So that in the book of Revelation, chapter 21, verse 9, he begins the chapter by saying, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth passed away, and there was no more sea." That's the sea that this ugly seven-headed beast comes up with. No more. He's gone. That's that. There's a new heaven and a new earth. And then he says in chapter 21, verse 5, Kai eben ekathemenos, epitophrano, idu, kaina, huiopanta. The word idu, he that sat on the throne says, look, I make all things new. The word idu means look. That's what most versions render it. Look. It's not what King James does. It's not what the New King James do. It has behold. So that when you read the text, look, I am making everything new. That works. Because he needs the look. But there's a look and a look, isn't there? He says, behold, I made everything new. This, and this we need. I need to speak to you this way. You need to speak to me this way. Our people need to become speakers of lovely language. I don't mean flowery, I was blue, she was too, his name was Skaboo. I don't mean nonsense talk. I mean rich, warm stuff that makes the world look lovelier and better for all the trouble that's there. Refusing to let the ugliness have the only word. Oh, you refuse to let the world's speech at its worst, weren't you? To be the only word that goes out. I'm from people like you and me. Needs to go the speech of glory and loveliness and gentleness and tender. The lover's speech needs to become common among us. And we need to speak to one another, husbands and wives, parents and children, brothers and sisters, friends, family members. We who are more and more transformed into the glory of the Lord Jesus Christ, 2 Corinthians chapter 3. Yes? That's our business. I don't know about an invitation or anything. I forgot to ask. All I know is that there's something that you need to talk to somebody here about it in some kind of formal way, do it. If you can settle it right where you are, settle it right where you are. And if there's someone you need to speak to after this is over, and hug them and apologize, something like that, do it. Do it. And if we're members of the Church of Christ, you know we follow the New Testament to call people in trust and repentance to be baptized into the Christ. And if you've come to love Jesus Christ, you've come to know Him and love Him, and right where you are, you're learning to love Him, and haven't yet completed the initial response to Him that the New Testament calls for, sure, we'd love you to do that. But one way or another, seek God. And God is for us. What should we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? Isn't that good news?